highlights of this written presentation. Room will be created for some interventions by members of the team of the Alliance for National Transformation. We have come here to present our views on the present amendments to the Administration of Parliament Act, also called the Lumu Bill. And we understood that the object of the bill is to provide for the election of the leader of the opposition, how he or she ceases to hold office, and also the approval of the shadow cabinet ministers and appointment of chairs and deputy chairpersons of standing committees. We may not address everything in the bill, but we will address areas that we have picked great interest in. And it is claimed that the bill is intended to cure certain defects in the present position in the law, that the law is silent in the composition of the electoral college that elects the LoP, that the party with the highest numerical strength simply imposes the LoP on other members of the opposition without their will, consent, or even participation, that the current manner of electing the LoP has led to the suppression of the views of the other political parties, and as a result of the members of the opposition in parliament cannot hold the leader of opposition accountable. It is claimed that because of these defects, there is need to amend the law to provide for to address these issues. And we come on the basis, the background of our submission is that the Constitution was amended to provide that under the multi-organization or multi-party form of a democracy, I want you to note that we are emphatic about this, there shall be in Parliament a leader of the opposition. And Parliament was directed to make a law on how the LoP is chosen and how she ceases to hold office. The 7th Parliament, in its wisdom, provided an amendment to the Administration of Parliament Act, CAPS 272. The leader of opposition shall be elected by the party in opposition to government having the greatest numerical strength. We have made some emphasis there again, that Parliament further provided for the LoP to cease to hold office if he or she is removed by the party that elected him or her. And in enacting these provisions, the 8th Parliament was guided by the phrase in the Constitution, multi-party form of democracy, in Article 82A of the Constitution. Multi-party forms of democracy have existed before, and it also continues to shape as we go along over centuries. Now we note that conventions have hitherto guided the election of leaders of opposition, and conventions in this case simply refer to informal and uncodified traditions that is followed by institutions of state. The leader of opposition by convention is a leader of the largest political party that is not in government, the party with the second highest numerical strength in the House. This convention is followed in the UK, Canada, and other countries, and also in the Commonwealth parliamentary traditions. Indeed, it is by this well-established convention or tradition that even here in Uganda, the Democratic Party elected Ben Kiwanuka and Paul Semugerere as leaders of opposition in 1962 and 1980. The emphasis is that this has been practiced before. It also worked well in the election of Professor Latigo Ogenga, Honorable, as leader of the opposition in 2006. Winnie Kiza, the Honorable Betty Awol, and I think that even in the 11th Parliament, this tradition is what was applied to elect the two leaders of the opposition that have participated. The bill now claims that this convention adopted by the 7th Parliament 20 years ago is a defect. we submit that it is not a defect. It doesn't have defects, and it is not a problem. On the contrary, what is being proposed is a defect to multi-partyism and a recipe for instability. The process did not only work for Uganda in the 1960s and 80s. It has worked for Uganda for the last 20 years when we returned to multi-party organizing. Bills and motions have been considered and enacted into law. Petitions have been processed in the House, and nothing has proven that their processing has been hindered by the way the LoPs have been elected or chosen to run the House. So we are actually wondering, why would anybody try to fix what is not broken? In our view, it is not broken. The convention is working. The tradition is okay. Why would anybody be trying to fix what is not broken? Who says, as we ask that question, we are saying, who says that because there is no electoral college to elect the LoP, there is actually a defect in law? There are many offices and office bearers who are elected without an electoral college. That does not mean it is a defect. It simply means that there is an alternative mechanism which the relevant institutions use for electing the leader of the opposition. And we know that political parties have their internal mechanisms in which they exercise internal democracy, and they arrive at a leader of the opposition. So we don't need, that's actually an electoral college on its own. The process is within the party. If the party in government designates the chairpersons and deputy chairpersons of sectoral committees of parliament without an electoral commission, electoral college, or a known electoral college, so to say, why should the official opposition be required to do so? Which electoral college, for instance, we would like to find out, elects the prime minister who heads government business? There is a mechanism in there with which the prime minister is arrived at, and it is respected. Process is followed, and we think that this argument for the electoral college, specifically for the LoP, is problematic. Two, we think that it is reverse thinking to argue that the party with the highest numerical strength imposes the LoP on other members of the opposition. Each political party in parliament has its leadership, unless this has changed. But the LoP, for us, in our understanding, is a national office provided for in the constitution of the land. It is an office for the whole of Uganda. It is not simply leading the political parties that are in the House. How can one argue that a constitutional office be limited to a few Ugandans? Each political party has its agenda, and its leadership pursues that agenda on its behalf. The bill seeks, actually, in our view, to impose the LoP on all the other political parties, and we think also that is not what should be done. That is why the rules of procedure have taken due care to allow each political party that gets into the House to choose its own whip, and with their own whip, they are able to pursue the separate, the independent agenda of their political parties, even outside the ambit of the leader of the the leader of the opposition. We find it very absurd that to argue that how the LoP is chosen has led to the separation of views of political parties. As far as we understand Parliament, there is nothing like collective responsibility in Parliament. Again, unless the dynamics have changed recently. But we know that every member of Parliament has an opportunity to present their views, to stand on the floor, to submit, and the Speaker decides who will talk and who will not talk, who will not submit. So, and when you refer to all the rules, because history is important, of the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, and now even the 11th Parliament, on petitions, bills, and motions, this position has not changed. So anybody who wants to submit can actually submit without necessarily thinking or alleging that the office of the leader of the opposition is the one suppressing their participation. D, why would anyone think that the LoP is accountable or answerable to all other political parties? All members of parliament, the LoP inclusive, and the Parliament of Uganda as an institution is accountable to Uganda in its legislative, representative, and oversight roles. And that is what we know. There is no law or practice that makes the LoP accountable to all other political parties, save he, she does so in terms of basic consultations, courtesies, and jointly agreed activities in the House. Otherwise, everybody is responsible to send them into the House. So we find that argument also faulty. The election of a leader of opposition by another group other than the political party with the highest numerical strength ultimately weakens the party. I mean the party with the highest, the second highest numerical strength, in the sense that even if they have to submit these 3 names, and then there is a group created in this House, that group exercises veto authority over the political party. We understand that this is problematic. The political party with the highest numerical strength must be the one to submit to this House the leader, the name of the leader of the opposition. Looked at the definition, what the proposed amendment seeks to do, and to redefine the leader of the opposition as the member who is the leader of parliament of all the opposition parties. Now we think that that is crazy. Leader of all the political parties. Where will the political parties even agree to that? If they cannot even agree to one common electoral platform, how can you want to impose on FDC, on LoP, on ANT, on all those, you want to impose a leader over all of them? We think that definition is not acceptable, and it's not tenable practically as far as the management of political parties out there obtains. There is a big difference between the official opposition and the opposition in parliament. The proposals in this amendment, in this bill, seek to abolish the official opposition in parliament. And that is unacceptable. The basis of our parliamentary democracy is that there is a ruling party that forms government, and then there is an official opposition which has clear roles. The second largest party in terms of numerical strength in the official is the official opposition. Chairperson, I'd like to remind the committee that there has been a practice, I hope it's still the one, that even the assigning of committee membership is based on numerical strength. If we tamper with this because of the leader of the opposition, do we seek to tamper with it also as we assign membership to committees in this House? Because we need to set a standard that runs across parliamentary practices. In terms of ideology, vision, and party platforms, I've already alluded to that. Each of the political parties out there has its own ideology. We do not want to see a situation where the LoP is now imposed to preside over the ideology of all those small parties that are that are not the second highest in numerical strength. Some time ago, I bring history to bear here. Some time ago, we had a situation where the official opposition was the FDC. And then the DPC and the UPC found a way in which they were able to negotiate with the ruling NRM, and they were able to send representatives to the East African Legislative Assembly. The official opposition actually lost when they submitted names they didn't have. So it is not possible to impose these on the ideologies of the party. The UPC will do what it wants in the House. The DP will do, and the other political parties will also do. And that is a position we think is healthy, so that parties exercise the freedom as they deem fit. Now, there is something we want to emphasize. Small opposition. If the bill is carried, if it is enacted into law, we seem to sense that the intention is to make small opposition parties, the smaller ones, to become the official opposition. And this is how it is going to work. If the total number of all the other small parties put together becomes greater than the number of the official opposition party, that means, one, they will be the ones to determine the LoP. It can no longer be the official opposition party, because some total of all the other smaller ones may be bigger than 57 or something. I don't know what LoP has. And that means you've taken away the power from LoP. Let alone saying that you may actually, by extension, be handing some of the power to the NRM, because some of the political parties in the opposition are also in close relationship with the NRM. So you can imagine, you'll just distort this whole thing. Any day they wake up, they will decide to remove the LoP, because you've given them power. He who decides, who appoints, will also be the one to remove. And that can be a recipe for instability in the already weak, in the already, difficult political terrain that we are in. You can imagine that now you remove a LoP appointed by political party X, and then they begin to look at it is that other small party that moved a motion or whatever, an activity initiated the process of removing our LoP. You don't want that disharmony in the political arena. More importantly, it undermines the essence and the principle of numerical strength. We submit to this committee that any political party that wants to be the second highest or the highest in numerical strength should actually go and get that mandate from the voters. You don't come here and you think you're going to get it by the law or get it by an amendment. If you got 10 MPs, stay with the 10. Don't try to act like you got 57 or you got 200 or something like that. We think that you are creating another front which undermines numerical strength, which is resident in the hands of the voters in Uganda. The argument about a tie in numerical strength is something that has never happened. But we propose that in the event that it happens, as we swear in, and it happens, and the House, the Speaker notices there are 24 and 24, all you need to do is to amend the rules of procedure to create a provision where one takes leadership of the opposition for 2.5 years, and another one also takes the leadership of the opposition for 2.5 years. They share that term. Our emphasis is that you don't need to amend the Parliamentary Administration Act. You only need to amend the rules of procedure to take care of a tie in the unlikely event that it happens. The question of human rights, and we are emphasizing that association really is by choice, and we don't want to force the freedom, the political parties, whether they have 1 member or whether they have 100 members. We don't want to force them to work together on this matter. In any case, if the 1 member of a political party had wanted to be the one determining the affairs of the other political party, they would have carried the flag of that political party. But they didn't. So why would we enact a piece of legislation that coerces the 1 member of the PP to work with the 57 of NUP? We find that problematic, and we think that if people, members of parliament, and even political parties should choose whether to associate or not to associate, but not by a piece of legislation. And this is a prohibition that also the House rules and the Constitution have taken care of. And we believe that if this bill is enacted in its present state, it is open to constitutional challenge. I want to address the issue of hypocrisy, because we've read into the bill and we sense that there are aspects that border on hypocrisy. The members of parliament that serve in standing committees, in sectoral committees, and also backbench members are designated by their political parties, individual political parties. So why would one peddle a standard which is contrary to the one that is practiced already in designating backbench commissioners and also designating committees? And even without emphasizing on designation of deputy chairpersons and chairpersons of standing committee, I think this will suffice to address the fact that we would like the status quo to be maintained. In conclusion, Uganda has had this tendency, maybe this is the first conclusion, to experiment whenever they establish doctrines, banning political parties, creating umbrellas, completely banning them. And now we are, after 1986, the one-party system, and now we came to 2005 and we opened up political space. We have a proven history, by the way, a member and your team here, honorable members. This country has a proven history of being very hostile to political parties. Yes, and that hostility, if we don't stem it, it also comes into legislation just to make sure that political parties do not grow. And that's dangerous for a democracy as a country. In terms of the priorities of the political opposition, we want to draw the attention of this House that our joy as the political opposition in Uganda, in terms of priorities, it wouldn't be to reduce further the space that we have in this parliament, which this bill seeks to do. We have issues that we have knocked on the doors of parliament for years, and that have to do with broadening the political space by creating an enabling environment of free, fair, credible, verifiable elections through electoral reforms. That's what we are looking for out there. We are not looking for another law to create a fight among the small parties that are dominated by the ruling NRM in a space called parliament. We are not looking for another law. And so if the proponent, if Honorable Lumu meant well to the opposition, deepening or expanding democracy for this country, would simply have required him to come to his own committee with a proposal on electoral reforms that have been here. I don't know, some of us used to be here. There were attempts to bring those proposals, and they have never seen the light of the day. We would be happy that Honorable Lumu uses his leverage to address the priorities of the political opposition. Moreover, we are impressed that the proponent of this bill could expressly get a clearance of financial implications within a few days. There are people, members of your committee can bear witness. When I moved the miscellaneous amendment to the penal code, I took 3 years without getting the certificate of financial implications. But doing everything, moving from this office to the other, even the speaker calling finance to order, but it took us 3 years. I'm happy that the Honorable Lumu now can get it in a few weeks. I wish he could get it for us for electoral reforms, because I even left Parliament and I passed the bill to the Honorable Medard Segona. I think he also finished another 2 years before he processed it. So this is a significant progress on your part, but we appeal to Honorable Lumu to use his prowess in convincing the executive to help us with amendments to electoral-related laws. Our advice is, rather than have even the little we have being taken away by this bill, Honorable Chair, we pray that no law should ever be passed in this House, enacted, which is seen to have eyes. Our perception out there is that this law, this proposed bill, seems to have eyes, and we also don't want laws that are trivialized to settle scores. It damages the reputation of the House. Two, we sense that many stakeholders and political parties do not support the proposed amendment. We've followed the discourse on the media, and therefore we conclude that if this is enacted, it is counterproductive to the spirit of the 2005 referendum and the multi-party organizing. We believe that it will lead to slow and eventual erosion of the democratic space. The little that we have will also be eaten up by these amendments. We strongly feel that democratic order and stability is threatened when influential people do everything within their power to weaken the smaller ones. And that is what this bill seeks to do. Chair, we conclude by making a prayer to this committee. And it is that we oppose this bill completely in its entirety. And we simply request this committee to recommend to the House that this bill does not go to second reading. That is the only prayer that we are making, because we understand from history that if this bill found its way into second reading and you use the parliamentary practices of voting, a law will be imposed on us that is totally not helpful to the political opposition, but also to the democratic growth in this country. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, National Coordinator, Honorable Alice Alaso.
Question raised by Honorable Segona. I would like to actually give you our experiences. Our experiences as FDC 2012 to 2016, and then 2016 to the 2016 leadership in Parliament. We made wide-ranging consultations with the political parties in those who were in the opposition, because at that time we were the leading opposition party. And as I had already indicated, internally within FDC at that time, we applied both methods. One time we elected the leader of opposition. I think at that time, Honorable Professor Ogenga Latigo. The second round we appointed, when we appointed Honorable Wafula Ogutu and subsequently Honorable Winnie Chiza. That was an internal process. And in terms of forming the shadow cabinet, we made wide-ranging consultations with the opposition parties. So ordinarily, to us, it should be left the opposition party to you choose whatever method they think is best in terms of how, because you need to build harmony, you need to build cohesion within the opposition for you to be effective.
Why did you abandon the election after 2012? And then you went to choosing, appointing?
In 2016, we had an internal discussion within the party, and we thought at that time what would serve us best would be to appoint. Actually, the appointment started earlier on before Honorable Wafula. it was with Honorable Nathan Nandala. So we decided that parties, when they are managing themselves, either in terms of strengthening themselves or in terms of whatever strategies they have laid, it should be left to them. Because at the end of the day, the opposition party, the largest one, ordinarily would be positioning itself to take power. And therefore it has to project itself to the population that we are here, we are ready, trust us to take power. And therefore, the manner in which you manage yourselves.
The question is, why did you abandon election, which seems to be
Fortunately, we have
more
FDC
democratic?
here.
That's what that's what
He was in charge.
At that time was part of the internal process.
I was his minister, so he was in charge. He has to answer.
I think the current leader of when he comes in, he'll be able to respond to that.
But the appointment, we can inform.
Make your conclusion, General.
The principal point we wanted to make is that the party which happens to be the leader of opposition at any point in time should be given space to determine the method it uses. It needs to be trusted. And once it applies methods consistent with good governance, it will be adding value to the democratic process. It will also be attracting attention to itself for it to be seen to be ready to take power and lead. So don't try to fix that through laws. Leave the party to do its part, because in any case, it would have been given the mandate by the population. Basically, that's what I wanted to
Thank you, General.
say. I leave it now to our team leader to be the one.
That we reject in totality the proposed amendment. It was well covered by the media. We went to various media stations where we were invited, both radio and TV stations, and we maintained the positions.
Honorable Chair, procedure.
Yes, please.
Honorable Chair, I don't think we are proceeding right when we don't have any document from UPC.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman said, the chairman told me that we can proceed without the document. So maybe to inform you further, we shall have some document presented by my party whip tomorrow, because she's coming tomorrow, Madam Honorable. So she'll present, since she's coming back tomorrow still, the party position, which is the same as the parliamentary group. All the 11 members of parliament under the EP's ticket presented their issues, and they discussed and agreed with the party position.
Yeah,
so we all agreed.
Proceed.
Thank you very much.
Only that everything you say should come tomorrow.
It will come.
And sign it.
It will be written, and I will sign it, and the whip also will sign the parliamentary committee group. So, our members sat last Thursday and also agreed with the party position, because our position is that, like the Supreme Court pronounced itself about some amendments that have to come way before the election roadmap, or should be rolled together with, before the roadmap rolls out by the Electoral Commission. We find we are very late. We need these amendments. We met with the Electoral Commission as IPOD members. They requested us to talk to our members of parliament and also the members of parliament. If the government is delaying with an amendment, like the Minister of Justice cannot bring it, maybe one member can come up with a constitutional amendment that can help them conduct the elections in a free and fair manner. So in other words, the roadmap has been rolled. We are way late in the electoral process. As you know, the roadmap of election means the election season has kicked off, because we start by electing our structures of the parties, and we need these structures to elect our flag bearers. So all these processes can only be helped, honorable members, if we have the Electoral Commission get the amendments that they need. So we are here to plead with you members, like we told Honorable Lumu, that much as he has these issues that he has raised, to help with the management within office or election of the LoP, we think that for having a free and fair election, which is urgent really, which is crucial, we need to have these amendments done. 2, we looked at the amendments that he's proposing. For example, bringing the election, nominating 3 people by the party which is leading in the opposition. And if they bring the 3 people, we assume, or in his bill, he assumes that this will cure the issue of, or it will bring cohesion in the opposition. To us, we think it will cause more chaos, because as you know, members, you've been contesting. Each time you contest, the losers even go to court. So we think the members of opposition will be more divided than cure the division. So it is of the party's position is that since this one will cause more chaos than before, let us concentrate on the issues which are priority right now, which is bring reforms which will help all of you have a free and fair elections in 2026. That the Electoral Commission has requested for, that the Supreme Court pronounced itself in 2016 in the case of Amama Mbabazi versus Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. So it is our request and humble appeal that members, we need to prioritize what comes first. And we think the election of 2026 is a priority to us. We think the other things can be addressed administratively. Some of the aspects of the bill that is proposing, it can be handled administratively. But for us, what is crucial for this committee, we still think you should help us with the amendments that the Electoral Commission has requested for, and also that the Supreme Court pronounce itself. Furthermore, an election cycle starts when the Electoral Commission blows the whistle. And by them rolling out the roadmap, we believe the whistle has been blown. So we have a law which is very clear, which has never been implemented ever since we had this multi-party dispensation. Honorable members, Article 4A is very clear. That would also facilitate a free and fair elections. That government, use of government or public resources for political party or organization activities. Government shall contribute funds or other public resources towards the activities of political parties or organizations represented in Parliament in accordance with the following principles. Registered political parties or organizations shall be funded by government under this Act in respect of elections and their day-to-day normal activities. But in this case, once the election season, the whistle has gone, meaning that the election year has started or program has started, parties which are funded by government under this Act will be funded equally. So we think honorable members of Parliament, you should help us, because when we were meeting Electoral Commission, they told us Honorable Asman Ambassador has been raising it in this committee, as a member of this committee, but they told him that it is Parliament to effect this by way of giving resources and pronouncing it to be distributed equally. So we think we're already in the election season. We need a free and fair elections. That is what we request as political parties who have an election to win. Actually, for us, we think it is more urgent because we want to defeat NRM and form government. We don't have time to think about being in opposition. We want you to amend laws which will make us have free and fair elections, like removing the army from the election period, to ensure that you fund police, to recruit specialized police to handle elections, a police which is trained not to look at opposition as enemy of the regime, but to look at all of us as citizens who are competing for the same good of our country. So we think we have a country to rescue. We have an election to win. we don't have time at the moment to have a bill which is going to deal with the leader of opposition, because for us, our intention is to form government in 2026. And our candidates are preparing to be nominated on the 2nd October 2025 for presidential elections. And the parliamentary candidates are preparing to be elected for parliamentary elections. So we think we should humbly urge you members, through the chair, that help us and shelve this bill. Keep it somewhere. And we have the amendments that the Electoral Commission is begging us to have, so that we have a free and fair elections, so that we have a level playing field. And that has been the one which, we have been having changes in leader of opposition, but we have never had changes in the presidents of Uganda. That is what we need in 2026, honorable members. So that is what we are requesting as UPC, that we need to have laws which are going to enable us compete and defeat President Yoweri Museveni in the 2026 elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ebil.
And honorable members, it's important to understand the reasons that informed the framers of the Act as amended in 2006. And by the way, I was privileged to be in the House at the time when this amendment was being considered. And I can say without hesitation that I'm conversant with what happened during that time. As we ushered in multi-party political dispensation from the monolithic system of the movement, where they defined the leader of opposition in parliament. And by the way, again, this was to operationalize the provisions in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as amended in 2004, after a referendum was conducted that ushered in multi-party democracy. This definition was benchmarked from the best practices that the leaders of the opposition in the Commonwealth parliamentary system are typically chosen based on their party's strength in the legislature. The party with the most seats, but not in government, usually gets to choose its leader as the leader of the opposition. This leader is often seen as the alternative prime minister or premier, ready to take over if the government in power loses the confidence of the House or the people of the Republic of Uganda. And you know that Commonwealth practice is something that we've adopted. Many things that happen in the House from the time of independence to now, 62 years and going strong, are adopted from the UK House of Commons. Even the green seats that you sit on, the wig that the presiding officers put on, and the regalia that is used in the House. In democracies, of course, the UK House of Commons, from which we draw good parliamentary practice, is a glowing success story of true parliamentary democracy. And therefore our contestation why we really would like to depart from these known norms to something new that makes us extremely suspicious as the FDC. In democracies like the Australian democracy, the leader of the opposition is recognized as the head of the alternative government. They lead a shadow cabinet, also known as the opposition executive or shadow ministry, composed of members elected by their party or nominated by the leader. Each shadow minister covers specific areas of administration and acts as the opposition spokesperson. This is written all over the place. You just have to Google and you access this information. It's available. The leader of the opposition plays a crucial role in scrutinizing the government, suggesting improvements to legislation, examining expenditures, and seeking information on government policy. They are also responsible for articulating the views of various groups within the community. We in the Forum for Democratic Change are deeply concerned about the shrinking political space for opposition parties. And the Lumu bill is a prime example of this. The FDC strongly opposes the amendment proposed by Honorable Lumu, believing it's driven by bad faith and aims to disempower opposition political party institutions. And the friends in the opposition that I see across the table know the level of harassment that we have got to endure while doing our political work, whether it's during an election or during even consultations before an election. Even if you convene a small, collection of party faithfuls to do business, the RDC, the DISO, the GISO, the RISO, the PISO, whatever they are called, would be nosing around everywhere to inconvenience you. And therefore, their venue that is, sort of left for our members of parliament to speak about the common man would be parliament. And this itself is under attack, and our members are being disempowered. Where else do you want us to go as the opposition? Where? The bill is seen as another attempt by the government to restrict the opposition's ability to operate effectively. This is part of a broader pattern of reducing political participation, undermining public institutions, and stifling dissenting voices in Parliament. And I would like to warn the committee and Parliament at this point that the more you reduce the space afforded, even the little space afforded to the opposition, the more you are pushing those in opposition to look for alternatives. And I think this is dangerous, not only for our democracy, but also extremely dangerous for the stability of this nation. Clause 2 of the bill. Clause 2 of the bill, which seeks to amend Section 8 avalanche of impunity, the Honorable Lumu. This proposed legislation seeks to alter the current system of election of leader of the opposition in Parliament by the majority opposition political party to Parliament, instead making it an elective position by the entire opposition. This diminishes the influence of the official opposition party in Parliament. If there are any political issues within the opposition, they should not be resolved through legislation. Instead, they can be resolved administratively. It will also fuel unnecessary divisions among members of the main opposition party due to avoidable quest for top positions in Parliament. And I'm extremely, and my team are extremely comfortable, voting for a position where there is no election across, by all the political parties in the opposition in the House, knowing that we ourselves are not the official opposition. I'm sure that our friends in NUP would be extremely uncomfortable about this because they would probably have a conflict of interest. We don't have a conflict of interest. We are saying we are comfortable with this. And who is, Lumu to even begin to speak for us? The FDC. I think he's extremely out of order. It's our considered opinion that the opposition's leadership is determined by election outcome in the general election. The voices of the people spoke in the election. And that is how a political party in the opposition becomes the leading or the official political party in the House. It's not just ordained on them. It is through the election that NUP got 57 members of parliament. Not through any other way. Denying the largest opposition party the right to elect the LoP is undemocratic and undermines the power of the very voters that put trust in them. It can also be used against the opposition by the party in power. On clause 3 of the bill, which seeks to amend section 9 of the Principal Act to provide grounds for impeachment of the leader of the opposition, the Lumu bill has sparked concerns, employed a strong opposition leader, effectively silencing dissenting voices. This fear is rooted in Uganda's history of restrictive politics, where the ruling party has maintained significant control over the political landscape. And my friends in NRM, make no mistake about this, Mr. Chairman. You could be the ruling party today, tomorrow you may be in the opposition. I am telling you this. You could be in the opposition. Don't make a law that has got colors. You should make a law that is color blind. Because, when you look at people like Mbabazi today, struggling, the law he made here, he pushed for it, the Public Order and Management Act, and he was the first victim actually before us, bundled from Jinja and brought to Jinja Road Police, Kira Road Police Station. So I want you, Honorable Selwanyi, Mr. Chairman, to be conscious of the laws you make in this House. If the Lumu bill becomes law,
Mr. President, address the committee.
Mr. Chairman and the committee, I was talking to the NRM, members of this committee. If the Lumu bill becomes law, and I hope it doesn't, it would further entrench the NRM's control by allowing the ruling party to manipulate the opposition's leadership. This could lead to a situation where the leader of opposition is forced to toe the NRM's line, fearing impeachment if she doesn't comply. And I know what goes on in this parliament. When a hot issue comes up on the floor, there are going to be telephone calls, to the leader of the opposition. You risk towing that line, tomorrow the axe will fall on your neck. And trust that the leader of opposition will be a human person. He's been a human person. She's been a human and will always be human. And they will react in fear. Very few will stand up and say, bring your axe and here is my neck. Clause 4 of the bill seeks to amend section 11 of the Principal Act under the proposal A, B, and C. We in the FDC believe that it's inordinate to require shadow cabinet to be action of members of the opposition parties because of the following grounds. Firstly, lack of unity and coordination. When multiple opposition parties are involved in approving the shadow cabinet, it can lead to disagreements and power struggles, ultimately weakening the opposition's ability to effectively challenge the ruling party. So many cooks actually spoil the soup, as you're aware. Number 2, inefficient decision making. The need for consensus among multiple parties can bog down decision making processes, hindering the opposition's capacity to respond promptly to government actions. Number 3, diluted accountability. With multiple parties involved, accountability becomes dispersed, making it challenging to hold individuals responsible for their actions and policies. You know, now, how does an FDC leader of opposition go after a JEMA shadow minister? It makes it very difficult for accountability to be realized. Conflicting interests. Different opposition parties may have varying interests and priorities, potentially leading to conflict policy positions within the shadow cabinet. And lastly, loss of opposition identity. A collective approval process may blur the distinct identity and values of the main opposition party, making it harder for voters to understand their stance. On the other hand, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, Honorable Chairman and members of this committee, having the main opposition party designate the shadow cabinet from our own experience allows for, number one, clear leadership and direction. A single party can provide a unified vision and direction, enabling more effective opposition. Streamlined decision making. Decisions can be made more swiftly, allowing the opposition to respond promptly to government action. And you know, honorable members and Mr. Chairman, you just have only 5 years here. The first year is for settling down. The second is for beginning to work. And probably the third is for working. The fourth, you are going to go to the constituencies because you are being harassed in the constituencies. And the fifth is an election year. In fact, part of it. Because an election will take place around January or February. And after you are elected out, voted out, you will be sitting in for a short time before the new parliament is sworn in, with very low morale if you don't return. And I'm speaking this from experience. And so parliament should not be entertaining any business that wastes the time of parliament. Accountability and clarity. Voters can hold the main opposition party accountable for their policies and actions, promoting transparency. The FDC are concerned that the Lumu bill has indeed raised concerns within the FDC regarding potential to disrupt Parliament's current structure. One of the key issues is that the ruling party doesn't elect its government chief whip or prime minister. It doesn't. They are appointed by the president. They are. And nobody questions the appointment by the president. All that is done is the names are brought to the House, the one for prime minister, the one for vice president. I hope it still happens today as it happened back in my time. And then, you know, you chorus in approval. Often it happens. The question is put and their eyes will always have it. Why then is the opposition under this bill being subjected to this kind of torture? The bill's timing and motives is questionable, as it may be driven by personal or party interests rather than a genuine desire for reforms. And we'll be proposing some reforms to you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members. Concerns about the potential for favoritism in the process of bills, noting that the Lumu, we in the FDC know the Lumu bill was fast-tracked while other private members' bills remained stuck. We are further amazed at the speed undertaken in processing this bill by the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, which looks fishy. Whether, you know, this is being, you know, forced down your throats. This is a bill that is being considered at a supersonic speed. And, you know, subject to our suspicion. We suspect you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll explain.
The Lumu bill has indeed raised concerns within us regarding the potential, its potential to undermine opposition unity and cohesion. This amendment could create divisions within the opposition, favoring smaller parties over larger parties. In order to become the official party in parliament, you have to work hard. You have to fight. You have to, go look for votes. And that is why we respect the NUP. They got 57. We do. Now, you are going to have a small party. I don't intend to undermine anybody. All I am saying, all the parties in the opposition should work so hard so that they may be the official party tomorrow, opposition party. As the FDC, it's essential to carefully consider the potential implications of the Lumu bill on opposition unity and cohesion, ensuring that any reforms prioritize the interests of the Ugandan people. Uganda has a lot of pressing issues which need to be addressed than the Lumu bill, this Lumu bill. And those of you, will bear testimony, you will bear witness to what is happening in the countryside. I move a lot in this country beyond just constituencies, and I know there are pressing needs of Ugandans that need to be addressed by the August House. We would like to recommend, if you really would like some reforms to happen in this country, one, that you amend the Administration of Parliaments Act, Cap 272, to provide, if you must, provide for a different way the elections of the LoP can be done only if the runner-up in the presidential elections holds that position and is therefore admitted to Parliament. That somebody has gone around the country, got 1 million and a half votes, and he or she is left out there without a platform from which to speak, is unreasonable. It is, undesirable in our context. You too should, or Parliament should, expedite the consideration of electoral reforms. And I think that Parliament after Parliament has been unjust to our democracy. From the time I was here, first year, nearly 20 years ago, we began to sing about electoral reforms. To this day, the proposals that we made have never seen the light of day. And you are passing this over to the next Parliament. And yet, there is a need to respect our democracy, to make it more refined. There is a need to respect the ruling of the High Court, it was Supreme Court, that ordered the people in power today to consider certain reforms. This is in the records of the courts of Uganda. Now, if you are not going to listen to courts, whom do you want to listen to? We also would like you to consider, Parliament to consider, an amendment to the law to provide for the resignation of elected members of Parliament, for the resignation as elected members of Parliament of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker upon elections as parliamentary presiding officers. This is something that we've also sung about, and we believe that it would cause the Speaker and Deputy, the presiding officers, to be neutral, arbiters in the House. In conclusion, there is no defect or mischief at all that necessitates the amendment of the Principal Act. We consider Honorable Lumu's proposals as redundant, not curing any defect in the current law. This committee should find by or in itself to recommend to Parliament the discarding of this bill without resorting to further waste of Parliament's time and taxpayers' money. It should be quashed, and really Parliament should not be allowed to spend our money with the taxpayers, talking about something that is not very useful to this country. Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much for allowing me to put this position across, and if you will allow some interventions by my colleagues who have come with me.